Man, what a drag.
So, welcome to Midnight with Ash. I'm your host, Ash. Today, we're joined by a voice actor whose work has resonated with anime fans worldwide. You know him as the tactical genius Shikamaru Nara from Naruto, but his voice has graced many other characters as well. Please welcome the ever-talented Tom Gibis.
Hey, welcome. Welcome, audience. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have Tom in here today. This is our first episode in At Midnight. Usually it's At Midnight with Ash and Make. But Make had an emergency, so he couldn't be here today. But so what I want to start with is your journey into voice acting. So
Sure.
How did the journey into acting, and more specifically voice acting, begin?
Well, I trained to be an actor. I did a lot of high school stuff and community theater, and then when I went to college, I was in the theater department, and I graduated from Mankato State University, which is now Minnesota State Mankato, and then I started working jobs as an actor, and I did a lot of like commercials and movies, little bit, in there, kind of trying to eke out a career. I did a lot of improv. I worked for the Disney cruise ships, improv on board, and that kind of thing. And then I was out in California. I moved to LA probably around 95, I think, something like that. And I got a friend of mine knew a guy named Jeff Nimoy. And Jeff Nimoy was the director on Digimon at the time. And so at a party, I would just kind of say, "Hey, Jeff, is there any chance I could audition?" I do a lot of characters and stuff, and I think I have a different kind of a voice. I definitely have a young voice, so I could play young characters and stuff. And at that time, he was very resistant. "Well, if you haven't done ADR before, I'm not really interested. I don't like training in new people. It is kind of a skill." And I was like, "Well, how do you get that skill unless you are doing it, And he's like, "Well, I don't know, but I'm not training you." So that was that. So every time I saw him at a party or whatever, I'd go, "Hey, Jeff, when are you going to get me in for an audition?" He's like, "Well, have you learned ADR yet?" And so I just kept bugging him. And then I found out my friend, the mutual friend that we had in common, that he was getting an opportunity to audition for Digimon the movie. And so I called up Jeff and I said, "Hey, our mutual friend John here is going in for your audition, and he doesn't have any experience with ADR. Can I come in and audition?" And he's like, "Oh, man." And he finally relented, and he let me come in and audition. And I auditioned. The producers loved me. They loved my voice. And then, of course, they asked me had I had any experience and had I done any ADR. ADR, which voice replacement. So when you get an anime from Japan, it's in Japanese. And then we translate it into English, and then you have to lay down an English subtitled, or not subtitle, audio track. So it's voice replacement, ADR. So, I said, no, I had not, but I'm willing to learn, and I think I'm a quick learner. At that time, boy, it was tough to do ADR. You had to make the flaps match exactly. So it would write something, and there'd be so many flaps, so many syllables in the character, and you would have to make it match exactly. And so they'd give you a count in, you do your line, and they go, "No, it's a hair too long. Oh, it's a hair too short." And you would have to then adjust your performance every time to go through it and to try and make it, And so what they were looking for is somebody who could do that so many times an hour. And if you do that many percent an hour, there was a number that they had. And if you could do it, they could employ you. If you couldn't do it, you're slowing everybody down, and so we're not going to hire you, that kind of thing. Today, just to let you know how it's different, is now they have this thing called Pro Tools, and Pro Tools allows them to, you can do the record, and if you're off by just a hair, they can stretch it, they can move it a little to the left, a little to the right. You can make it slot in, and sometimes they have to really mess with it. And generally, if we find that, they'll either change the line, like the line was either overwritten or underwritten, and or they'll have you re-record, and they'll say, just slow the delivery down just a hair to make that work. And But for the most part, they can kind of do a lot. The engineer can do a lot to fix it. In the old days, the way I learned it, the way I did it, and a lot of old school guys did it, you had to make it fit exactly. And that was a trick. And basically the Digimon movie people said, we can't use you on the movie because we don't have time to kind of get you up to speed. But we do love your voice, and so we're going to give you a couple episodes of Digimon because we have some other projects in mind for you. And I was like, great. So they gave me a couple of episodes of Digimon. The director was Jeff Nimoy, who was my friend, a friend of a friend. And guess what? Jeff had to train me in on how to do ADR. So
Ended up having to do it anyway.
he grumped about it the entire time. I did like 4 episodes as a character, Michael Washington, who is Meanie's cousin. If you're aware of the show, he was the only character that's from the United States, and he was kind of a spoiled little rich kid. That was sort of the character breakdown. He was. I played a lot of spoiled little rich kids in the early days. I did a lot of these shows, like Honey and Clover and Prince of Tennis and stuff, where I was like. You're not necessarily the villain, but the guy who was always complaining and, you shouldn't go out with you. You're a jerk. I've got money. I can take care of, stuff like that. He was very, the characters I played were very full of themselves, usually very wealthy. It's kind of an archetype character in a lot of anime. And that was sort of my bread and butter in the early days, is this sort of spoiled little rich boy. And, anyway, so I did a couple episodes of Digimon, and then they put me on a show called Shinzo. They had me audition for that. And then they gave me that part, and they said, if you do well at this, then, if you can get up to speed in about 3 or 4 episodes, then we'll keep you on. And if not, we're just going to have to let you go, and we'll find somebody else. But we don't want to get too far down the road if you're not cutting it. And I got put with a director called Michael Sorch, who also does a lot of characters. The guy, Michael Sorch, best guy to learn from. He was just super easy and funny and relaxed and made a great atmosphere in the booth. And we hacked out, several episodes. And they never said, you have the job. They just kept calling me to come back in for episodes. And by about episode 10, I was like, I guess I have the job, So that was that. And then that led to other things. And basically, I worked at Saban, and so they put me on a couple of other of their shows, and then that once you kind of start working with different directors and different people, then they pull you in and they'll get you on shows, and that's kind of what happened. And there's some reason, and I don't know how they got my name, but somebody from over at Studiopolis, Jamie, called me in for an audition. Now they called in just about every voice actor I knew at that time to come in and audition for Naruto, and I was just glad to be there, and I got to audition, and I got the role of Shikamaru Nara.
Was Shikamaru the one that you went in and auditioned for? Did you audition for a wide variety of characters?
Well, what they had was, so in the lobby they call sides, which are several lines of a character, and then they have a character description, and they were all laid out in the lobby, and there was maybe 20 of them, 20 different characters, and so they said pick 3. Pair them, and when you're ready, tell us you're ready, come in and we'll have you audition. And so I was like, great. So I kind of, I didn't know the show or know the books at that point, anything like that. So I picked Naruto because, of course, that's the name on the show. So you want to go for the lead. And for whatever reason, I picked Choji and I picked Shikamaru. I don't know why. I didn't pick Neji. I didn't pick Sasuke. But I had no idea what was what and who was who. Of course, I know now, but at the time, I didn't. And my friend Shikamaru was a surfer dude, a California surfer dude, whatever, man. Yeah, dude. But not so California. I toned it down a little bit. And kind of a cool guy, and I generally don't play cool guys. Like I said, I played a lot of either the excited young hero or I was the snobby little rich kid. And so I thought, I'll do this because it's a little different. And I had a little inkling of that voice that I do for Shikamaru in that audition, and that's what they liked. And they said, we're going to have you come in for Shikamaru. That's the role we'd like to offer you. I had no idea what that meant. So I was like, okay. I was glad because his name in the beginning, I still get crap for saying Shikamaru improperly. And all the other actors in the show go, God dang that, because the Japanese names are some of the tougher things to get, and sometimes first ones to record, you'll do it one way, and then 10 episodes in, we're gonna have you go back and change the pronunciations of this, like a word like Akatsuki. If you look at a word like Akatsuki, you'd say Akatsuki, but it's not. It is, but it isn't. But along with the Japanese creators of the show, because they would get sent everything, and then they would decide what we're going to do as a pronunciation, and then they land on Akatsuki. So then everybody has to say it the same way, Akatsuki. And then you can kind of see, like, even our fans, some people call it Naruto. If you listen to Yuri, who plays Sasuke, he has the best pronunciation because he really speaks Japanese. So he calls it Naruto. You kind of rolls that R, Naruto. And then you go, oh yeah, that's kind of the way it should be. But it's funny because I've even run into people that go, oh, we love that Naruto show. And then I go, what's your favorite character? And they'll say Naruto.
Oh, well, okay.
So you're saying it wrong one way. Then you say it, like the whole show, we call him Naruto.
Yeah, every episode.
Whether that's right, wrong, or different, that was what was decided. And, and you're calling him Naruto. So it is, it doesn't, there's some kind of, I don't know what that is, and they don't quite get that the name of the character show is the name of the character, or they do, but somehow there's a different pronunciation.
Yeah, they have it different in their mind than what it is in the real life, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But a lot of times too, like, it's tough for Miley, who plays Naruto, because, say, have you heard of it called Naruto? And then, what character you play Naruto, and it's like, because the name is also the name of your character, it's like, yeah, we've seen Naruto. What are you talking about? It's, yeah, I'm Naruto.
Because people don't associate him with a female, right? So it's like Ash from Pokemon. It's also played by...
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like Ash from Pokemon is played by a female character.
That's not just an American thing. That's a tradition in Japanese anime, is to have a female do the young voices, because their voices don't change. So if you get a 9-year-old boy, you want him to stay like that 9-year-old boy. If you cast a 9-year-old boy and you go more than 3 seasons, that kid's voice is going to change. And if you're doing something like, let's say, like The Simpsons, where Bart Simpson never ages, right? If you would have got a 10-year-old to play Bart Simpson in the first season, he's now 32.
Right. Yeah.
Or 42, because it would have been 30 years, right? So that voice is going to change. So that's why they did that with adolescents. Anyway, that
makes a lot more sense, because unless you're going to have like a show where the character does age progress, which isn't a lot of anime, to be honest, everybody's eternally the same age.
That's right. Well, there is, our show, the first series, everybody was the same, but it lasted like 250 episodes, so that's like 3 years in real time, and then or in the timeline of the show, and then we went to Shippuden, which was a 3-year time jump, and so now everybody aged up a little bit, including Naruto. And then we go to Boruto, which is another time jump, and it's like now everybody's aged up, so in the end the show's been on for 20 years, and I think in real time of the show itself, self-contained, it's 9 or 10 years, something like that, that the events have all taken place within a 10-year or 12-year period of time, something like that. No, it would have been like 15-year period.
Is there a role you thought about auditioning for that you didn't end up doing, or that you wish you would have done now?
As far as Naruto?
In general, like
in hindsight? Oh, there's every anime that's out there, I wish I could have gotten to audition for. You don't always get to audition, and there's a lot of things I auditioned for that I didn't get. It just... and you kind of go, well, you don't get everything you audition for. They might like you, or they might bring you in for something else in the show, or they might bring you in for a completely different show. What you really want to do is just go in and do a good job, have a nice audition, and then hopefully leave an impression that if it's not this show, maybe they'll think of you for something else.
Right.
Like, and that's happened. That happened quite a bit. And then why they call you in or don't call you in, I have no idea. And sometimes you can get you can get pigeonholed a little bit where they think you can only do the one thing.
Right.
And then, you think every actor thinks they can do everything, but it's not true. I have a very definite range and a style, and it doesn't always fit with everything that they're trying to do. So it just happened to fit.
Yeah, I mean, you've done everything from anime to cartoons, like even in JLA Adventures. Like you did the movie for Trapped in Time, right? Yeah, it's where you're Toy Man and Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the funnest. Yeah. Yeah. And I was the baby too. I did the baby Superman voice, and which was just basically crying. And then, but it was, it was fun. That was one of the funnest records to do.
Is there a difference in between doing? Is there a difference between doing something like that, a cartoon like that, versus doing an anime?
Yeah. You got a lot more freedom to play around, which is nice. You can say the line how you think the line should be delivered. You don't have to, speed it up or slow it down or contract it to make it fit. You just have to, you can say the line and then they animate around you, which is kind of nice. So the way you delivered the line is how they're going to animate it. And then you're also in the, like when we did Justice League, all the villains were in the same record. There were a couple of battle scenes and a couple of the Fortress of Doom. We were all in there making our plans together and sitting at a conference table. So they had all of us in the same room at the same time. And so that was kind of nice. And then they would do, they'd say, okay, the rest of you can sit back for a while, don't make any noise, but Tom's going to do his lines that you guys aren't involved in. And then, we would do those bits. And the same with everybody else. But the nice thing was you kind of had an audience, which when you're doing anime, you're generally alone in a room. And they just get all your lines because it's the most efficient way to do it, because they already know what you're going to do, because the script is the show's already been made, the script's there. So what they try and do is get as many Shikamaru lines. Like there might be an episode where I have one line. Well, they don't want to bring me in for one episode to do one line. It's happened every now and again, but they'll try and get like 5 or 6, 7 episodes of Shikamaru, and then I can just crank through it in my session. And then they get everybody else. And you do little chunks of the show at a time. And sometimes, like I said, you're the first to record. And then you're sort of the canary in the coal mine in that if there's a new name or a pronunciation, you give it a shot. They look it up. They try and come up with a thing, and then you do it. And then by the time they come back around to you, they'll go, well, we got word from the front office. We're going to change that name pronunciation. So you say it 4 times in the 3 episodes that you already recorded. So we're gonna kind of cut you in to change your pronunciation on that. And that it was tough because I have to write things out phonetically, and then it'd be like, did I get it? Did I say it? And then they would slot that in, and you try and make the record so like if you're yelling or whatever. But some of them, boy, it was just hard to get it into my head as to what that name is. Akatsuki is one I remember, like, oh man, what is because you read it and it doesn't seem to make sense. And then you just kind of go,
your mind wants to call it Akatsuki or something like, yeah, I did that for the longest time.
Yeah, before the record, in your head, you're going, Akatsuki.
With Shikamaru being a fan favorite character in the Naruto series, did you ever anticipate like that show's global impact?
No, but I'll tell you, as soon as I got cast and we started kind of doing some episodes, it's funny because you don't notice something, and then once you're aware of it, you start seeing it everywhere. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, hey, that's our show. That's our show over here. That's, and I started seeing how like it is kind of everywhere. And then that's only grown as the years have gone by. It's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember it was a couple of years ago, I was watching New Year's Rockin' Eve, and my wife and I were watching it, and they're doing the ball drop and everything, and they cut to the crowd, and there was like 4 guys wearing Akatsuki jackets, with the red cloud on it. And I was like, wow, like nobody knows. It's like that's our show, it was pretty crazy. So it was a lot of fun.
So has it like influenced you both like personally and professionally, like that impact that you have with your fans? I know there's specifically people that love Shikamaru as a fan favorite character. He's one of my favorites. Like out of all of them, I've got him and Jiraiya, funny enough.
Yeah. Well, the 20 years that the show is on, I was able to do 2 like conventions. I did one in 2010. I did one in 2007, and that was basically it. Like Miley, who plays Naruto, she would go to conventions the whole time. The 20 years that we did it, she would be going out, 3-4 conventions a year, or 5 or 6 or 7, and then that just kind of grew. And then pandemic happened, and everybody got locked down. And Miley said, "Let's put together an online convention thing." And we did a couple events where we did like group chats, and fans could log in, and and then of course at the same time came the rise of the Funko Pops. I think everybody's pretty familiar what a Funko Pop is, but that became huge. And so right as we were coming out of pandemic, Shikamaru got his own Funko Pop, and then we started hitting the conventions. And I got an agent called me and said, "Would you be interested in going out and doing a couple conventions?" And I was like, they never seemed to be interested in the last 20 years. Like, nobody seemed to care. They liked Miley, but they didn't care about the side characters or anything.
Right.
I'm talking about promoters and stuff.
Right,
and,
yeah.
But I
getting
think
them
part
at
of it,
events
though,
and everything.
Yeah, but I think part of it was because of pandemic, people went back and watched all of Naruto, which is now, if you consider Boruto, Shippuden, Naruto Shippuden, and Boruto, that's now like 900 some episodes. And people were sort of leery of like getting into a show that's that complicated or that long, and it was like, oh man, but now all of a sudden people had 2 months where they didn't do anything, and they just let's watch Naruto, and they did it as a family. And so now we had kids that were interested in the show, and young adults, and 20-year-olds, 20 and 30-year-olds that kind of got this new interest in an old show. Even though we never stopped recording the whole time, even through pandemic, with Boruto and stuff, it was just nonstop for us. It just kept going. And Boruto ended for us like about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And then it really was over. But and it may come back because they're now doing new.
Yeah, they've got a time skip now and Blue Vortex.
Boruto Blue Vortex, and I hope they animate that.
I'm sure they will. I mean, there's a huge demand for that universe. I mean,
yeah, and we all of a sudden were kind of celebrities, which was fantastic, and we started doing cons, and now I maybe do 10 events a year. And so the last 3 or 4 years, I've done, 30, 40 conventions. And it's just, it's really been wild. And it's the combination of, pandemic and the Funko Pops coming out and this re-interest in Naruto and becoming sort of looked at as one of the big 3 and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of nostalgia with it. And a lot of those kids have grown up and gotten their kids into it. And so therefore it's become this almost legacy show. It's fantastic. So
yeah, it's really nice because like Naruto was one of my favorite animes growing up. So it's cool to see it go from not being really mainstream to what it is. Because I remember watching it like at night on Toonami.
Yeah.
So like it's really
it was
cool
kind of the thing of, when we started, it was kind of a niche thing for sure. And the nerds were into it, just the real hardcore anime weebs, I guess you would say, were into that. And now, I've done a couple of like Zoom things with anime clubs in different high schools and stuff. And like an anime club in a high school, like you'd have a chess club and a math club, and it's like, what? That's what they're doing. And it's really a great, it's an embrace of the art form, which I just think is so cool, and people want to talk about it and discuss things, and but when we started, it was just the anime kids were into it, and that was a very small group of people, and that has now where it's really become a phenomenon, especially like the anime cons and stuff, and just
conventions have
and
blown
everything
up.
that goes with that. Yeah,
especially
it's really blown up.
We've got like where I'm from, Georgia, we have the like MomoCon and Dragon Con's like a huge event every year.
Yeah.
So, but like transitioning into the cons conversation, as you've attended, like you've said, various conventions and events, are there like any memorable fan interactions that left a lasting like impression on you, or that like people come up to you and specifically want you to say what a drag?
Everybody wants me to do that. If I feel like I'm not doing my job if I don't say what a drag. Oh man. And it's so easy to do, and it makes people so happy to do that. So some of the memorable ones, well, first of all, you get these guys that they want to tattoo your signature on their body, which is like, okay. And, they'll come up and they'll show me a Shikamaru tattoo, and then you sign it, and then they'll get a tattoo. There's a guy, I think it was Minneapolis Comic-Con, and he was going for the record of how many celebrity anime actors' signatures he could get tattooed on his body. And he had like 200 of them tattooed all over his body. And so basically in the morning, he came by and hit all the people that were there at the con to have us sign his leg or whatever. He had a certain spot that he wanted done. And then he came back at the end of the day. He had already had them tattooed over. And, well, there's my signature, and that's going to be on somebody's body for the rest of their life until they get it lasered off or whatever. But, it's kind of weird to think, and very cool that they're so into it, that they do that. But we do get a lot of people that come up and say, you were my childhood, and a lot of people get, they start reliving some of the moments. And, I would talk to people about Asuma, who was my sensei, Shikamaru sensei in the show, and people would get upset, really on the verge of tears, talking about what that meant and how they felt about Asuma. And I was like, wow. And I called up Doug Erholtz, who plays Asuma, and I said, dude, you have no idea. I've been out there meeting the fans and how much of an impact you had on them. And so eventually I connected him up with my agent who does these live events, and now Doug's out there, and a lot of times we'll go out together as Asuma and Shikamaru and do events and signing and stuff. And it's really amazing the amount of sort of love, and they want to connect with you, and it's just, I'm so thankful I got on a show like that where, one, people have seen it. Most of the stuff I've done, nobody's seen it, It's like, where there are people that see it, it's like, and I will get people that come up to me at con and go, oh, you were in Honey and Clover, that was my favorite show. And you're like, really? Because, it's a good show, but it's just that a lot of people hadn't seen it,
Yeah, it's a very underrated anime, to be honest. That and Shinzo is also both.
Shinzo was fun. That was like 30 episodes. Kind of I think they thought it was going to be bigger than it was. They tried to make a card game out of it, and I don't think that really went anywhere.
I think it was before its time, honestly.
Yeah, it was on Fox Kids.
Yeah,
so they were trying to make something that they could dual market, that kind of thing. So, but that was a fun show. And again, I was more like a Naruto character in that, playing, what was his name? Mush Rambo,
Mush Rambo, yeah.
And that was a lot of fun to do. And it was fun to be the lead, which was fun. And he really was a lot like Naruto. He'd go off half-cocked and very excitable, that kind of...
Figure it out as he goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Plan? Who needs a plan?
I know a lot of actors, or I'm not sure voice actor wise, but they get tired of being identified with one character or just one show. Is that something that ever affects you?
I know a lot of actors who have far more credits than I do, and especially when it comes to anime and voiceover, and they don't have that one character that you can go to a con with. They've been on a lot of big shows, been on a bunch of video games, but you need to have at least that one thing. And mine was Naruto, and it was Shikamaru, and I'm just so thankful that I got that one character that, that really, like I said, there's a lot of people out there that done a lot more than I have, and they're sitting at home and not doing these conventions and stuff. And, but that's too bad. I always try and hook up my buddies with, like an agent and stuff, and they're just like, yeah, we couldn't sign them. They need that. You need that tentpole character or that show. Like if you're in One Piece or you were in Naruto, or you can just name off. There's Attack on Titan or Demon Slayer. Like if you have one of those, then that opens the door, and you can. But if I just had Shinzo and a couple of the other all the other stuff I've done, I'd be, like I said, I wouldn't be out at the cons meeting fans. So it's just kind of a weird.
Makes it a little bit more marketable.
And if you got a Funko Pop, you can almost tell. Like if your character has a Funko Pop, then you've made enough noise with your character to kind of reach that pop culture.
Yeah, I was looking over because I have a ton of Funko Pops. I have a lot of the anime, like AMA exclusives.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But I don't think my Shikamaru's, I'm pretty sure, upstairs. So I was looking for it. But
well, you got to get that signed.
Hey, man, I agree. I've got it. I think you're in Anime Riverside, right?
Yes, Anime Riverside. Are you close to Anime Riverside?
Yeah, May 31st, June 1st.
Come visit. We'll get it signed.
I definitely need to get it signed. I need that one. I have a Sasuke sitting somewhere.
Sasuke, whatever.
Is there like anything upcoming or
yes?
Any upcoming projects that you're looking forward to or excited about?
Well, projects you never know. You audition for a lot of stuff and you don't know if, you don't even know if they're going to see the light of day if you record.
Right.
Or if it's just like straight to DVD or, whatever, streaming or something. And so that stuff, who knows? But as far as events, the things I know, I've got Riverside coming up at the end of May. Then I go to, Cheyenne, Wyoming, the 23rd and 24th of August. And then I have to look at my list. But I know there's one in Washington kind of at the end of the year. I'm doing, Indianapolis in June. And then, St. Paul in September, St. Paul, Minnesota. And then, it's down in Arizona. It's not Phoenix. Wait, that'll be coming up like October, I think, something like that. And then, again, if you follow me at Instagram at the real Tom Gibis or at TikTok at the real Tom Gibis, I always make announcements of where I'm going and what I'm doing, and we try and spread it around. I just came back from Canada. I was up in Calgary meeting a lot of fans. They're super cool up there. It was really fun. And I went to London a month before that and did the London Anime Con.
Is that your first time overseas?
Well, it's for a signing. Yeah, I've been overseas. Just me going on vacation and stuff, but and of course when the Disney ships were being built, those were built in Venice, Italy, so they should have shipped us over there to work on the ships. And so I lived in Venice for 6-8 months while we worked on the ships. So that was a real interesting life experience, a lot of fun. And so yeah, I've been to Europe and stuff, but not as doing a signing. I did one day at the London Anime Convention, and it was great. It was great to see all the people, and they couldn't believe I was there. It's like, you came all the way. It's like, yeah.
You need to get down to Georgia sometime.
Let's see. I've been to Georgia. There's a toy store in Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, that I did maybe a year and a half ago, something like that. So, but yeah, Georgia's hot. Texas seems to be the place. We go to Texas a lot for some reason. They have big cons, and there are a lot of excited fans, super big fans. It's really fun.
Fantastic to see you doing all these events, because it's like you said at the beginning, the side characters didn't really have any presence at the cons. I would go and you would just see male or the voice actor for Sasuke, and that would be about it.
Yeah, but you know how many Jiraiya fans are out there? I mean, it's holy moly, David Lodge.
Yeah, a ton.
And then Kakashi,
and like you said, Doug. I mean,
Doug Erholtz. Now, Doug's one of those. He's in Bleach. He's in ton of other stuff. Which he was in Digimon. he was even in Demon Slayer. He plays the crow in Demon Slayer. But that Asuma had a Funko Pop, and that was his door into it. Now his Bleach characters have a Funko Pop, and he's got some other things. It's crazy. It's like really blowing up for Doug. He was one of those in the beginning. It was like the only thing he'd done all these characters, but he didn't have that. Asuma was kind of the one that opened the door when we were doing the early days after pandemic, going out, start doing cons. And then now all his other characters are kind of, lining up. Like now he pushes Bleach more than he does Naruto.
Bleach just got that new season, right? Or that new spin-off.
That's right. Well, they
revitalized, I guess, in the anime world.
They resurrected it.
Yeah, I mean, it really has come back again. Is there I'm gonna try to wrap up some here. I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
Is there like a singular line or scene as Shikamaru that stands out to you? Because I know what my favorite one is. I just want to see if it's the same.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them, because like the tuning exams is a great sort of introduction. We realize that there's a little bit more to Shikamaru than just being a lazy ninja.
He's the genius, yeah.
And you start to kind of see how he thinks. That whole scene, just that, sometimes I wish I was a cloud, and then he surrenders to Tamari. Spoiler alert. It's just beautiful, and you realize, like, wow, like there's so much going on with this kid that we didn't. But on the surface, you just thought he was one thing, and it turns out he's just a whole lot of other stuff going on. So I love it for that. But probably the best scene is with Hidan's battle.
That is my favorite. Yeah.
Is that what you were gonna go for?
Well, yeah, that's my favorite, because I'm the one who's about to pass judgment, because I'm your god now.
Yeah. That Lord Jashin or whatever isn't your god anymore. I am. And the only one that's delivering vengeance today is me. Something like that.
That is 100%. That's probably one of the best scenes overall in Shippuden.
It's an interesting thing, because now that I'm doing cons, it's like you want to make sure you get that right. And what I just said is not what I said on the show. That's sort of a combination of all the different, because you have the manga, and you have the translated manga, and you have the subtitles,
and then
then you have the dub version, and those are all different versions of the same scene.
Right.
Like they say it just a little bit different in each one of those, and a lot of people go, well, it's not the same as the translated. It's like, well, unless you're speaking the original Japanese, meaning is slightly changed every time, because even when you try and translate it to English, even in from the book, if you think of the manga as, okay, that's the primary source.
Yes.
100%, and the translation of that is probably the closest. And then when you get to the anime, they made a lot of changes there. And so I think the original in the what I actually say on ours is something of the fact, because I'm talking about you and I are different. I believe in the will of fire. You and your Lord Jashin don't scare me. And then he says something about that pathetic Lord Jashin isn't your god. The only one that's delivering vengeance today is me. So I don't say I'm your god now, but he does say it in the manga, and he does say it like in another translation. So it's like, it's just an interesting thing. But so I kind of rewrote it to be concise. The thing that the sort of the juice of the crux of the biscuit, what everybody wants, and then they feel like, yeah, that says what the scene is so sort of that way that I did it, which is that pathetic Lord Jashin or whatever isn't your god anymore. I am, and the only one that's delivering vengeance today is me. And that, because it concisely encapsulates that whole experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's that scene.
They do a lot of things like that. There's a great line that I do, because a lot of, I say what a drag all the time. There's another line in the original, the original that I recorded. So in the anime, it says, it's not because I'm lazy. It's because I don't care. But that's really bad writing, because you say because twice. It's not because I'm lazy. It's because I don't care. So a lot of times I'll just shorten that because also you got to write it and got to make it fit on a Funko Pop. So I'll just say, it's not that I'm lazy. I just don't care. You're basically saying the same thing. And a lot of times we may have added the because to fill a gap in the flap.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up saying because it's not, you would never write it like that. An editor would come up and go, you can't say because twice in the same sentence. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. And a lot of times you have to do a lot of fillers when you're trying to fill gaps in the flaps. But just to say this too, because a lot of people get really bent out of shape how, we're off on our translation or whatever. We get every script approved first by Viz Media, and then Viz Media sends us to the Japanese. And so there's nothing that is done in the dark on our own. We're not making up translations. We're not making up pronunciations. We have very little latitude with that stuff in our actual production of it.
Because they have the final say.
If people don't like it, or like they feel like we didn't translate it the right way, they probably had 20 different writers look at it and try and come up with what's the essence of what we're trying to say. And for English-speaking people, you want it to be relatable. And if you talk in a very awkward way, and people are like, why do they talk so weird? It's because you're doing a translation. If you do a strict translation, it sounds so stilted, and you want it to feel organic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of times...
It's like a lot of times you take something and translate Japanese to English. The sentence doesn't make a lot of sense because of how they arrange words.
That's right. Well, things like, we would say Shikamaru Nara. In Japan, they'd call you Nara Shikamaru. You start with your surname first, and that's just a little thing. And when you get into things like, for example, with translating stuff, if I were to say, hey, you're like Santa Claus. Well, you know exactly what that means. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If I said you're like Santa Claus, you could take it a couple of different ways. You could say, well, I'm a little chubby. I've got a beard. I'm a happy person, or I give gifts. The spirit of Christmas is, peace and love, peace on earth, that kind of thing. And we can all say that in one little, you're a lot like Santa Claus to me. Meaning you've given me gifts or you've given me a lot, right?
Right.
Japanese person would have no idea what you're talking about. They might know but Santa Claus isn't a big thing in Japan. It is here, but it's not there. And in the same way, they do the same thing. They make references to a lot of Japanese mythology. And, it's like if we were to say something, was a devil or a demon, we would know what that is, right? Because we all have an idea what a devil or a demon is. They have specific characters from their mythology. Well, even now you could say that guy's a lot like Thor, and we now know from Marvel movies idea of what a Thor could be. But 20 years ago, before the Marvel movies, and you just had the comic books, you might not know what the reference is, what they're trying to get to with Thor. Thor is a little impulsive of one of the gods, of the Norse gods, that kind of thing. So you run into a lot of those walls where now you have to explain it. You can't just say, even Jiraiya is based on a real mythological story from Japan. And so they can say Jiraiya and they know exactly what you're talking about. We have to explain what is Jiraiya. Who is Jiraiya? Jiraiya the Wanderer, Jiraiya the Knight, the Broken Knight, or the Lost Knight, the Knight, Disgraced Knight, something like that. Which would be the disgraced ninja or the disgraced, whatever.
Right, the sage.
And so you have to find ways to insert that with what they already know. They don't need explaining, but our American audiences do. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, they need that backstory because
that's right.
That's where that cultural shift is, right? So,
and that's what makes it so incredibly difficult to translate it in a way that makes everybody happy. You're never going to be able to do it. You know what I mean? So we go, because we do get people that get really upset that, like, you changed that. That's not the way it should have been. And it's like, oh, well, take it up with the producers and take it up with the original Japanese creators, because we just do what we're told. FYI, people, the actors have the least amount of power in this entire thing. So
They just show up to record the lines, guys. Got to give them a
right.
break.
Every once in a while, you get to make a suggestion when you're trying to make something fit, and because you either have to put some filler in, and you might be able to participate in that. But other than that, you're basically along for the ride, and we do the best we can with what we're given, and the story we tell. I think the essence of it, I think, is pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it both in subbed and dubbed, and neither one's lost on me. So I understand where you're coming from, where you're trying to, because you're still portraying the same message from sub to dubbed anyway. Like, you're coming off as that character's persona.
General broad stroke. You might not get every detail correct, but you know what I'm saying?
Right,
yeah. So anyway, everybody needs...
You're getting the root of the character, which is what really matters.
Everybody just needs to relax, because even if you're looking at the sub, that's not quite right either. I mean, the only way to really experience it the way that the author intended you to experience it is to read it and watch it in Japanese. So unless you're a fluent Japanese speaker, you're doing something that's a little bit less than. And so anyway, I'm just saying that out of no judgment, people. It's all peace and love. We all love the same characters. There's sub people, and there's dub people, and there's original text people, and yet it's really the whole story. It's the one thing I think we can all rally around, that it's just a good show. And no matter what, we haven't been able to kill it or destroy it because we've changed it in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and it's influential. It's an influential show. I mean, it's literally, I'm pretty sure there's references to it in tons of other anime.
Oh yeah.
Cultural references.
Somebody sent me just recently that in it's in the background of another show, Hunter x Hunter maybe. It's Choji, Shikamaru, and Ino, and they're sitting in a crowd scene in one of these animes. It's like in the background. I thought, wow, that's cool. Like, they did it's definitely a nod to Naruto, and it's definitely a nod to Team 10, because they did a screenshot and you can see it, and we're just, it's a crowd scene, and it is definitely Shikamaru. It is definitely Choji's eating a bag of chips, and Ino is, like swinging her ponytail, and I was like, holy crap! That is definitely a reference. That is not an accident. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen has a Rasengan.
Oh no, maybe it was
reference.
Jujutsu. I think it was Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah, I know they have a Rasengan reference, and in Assassination Classroom, Horo Sensei wears a ninja headband and has Naruto whiskers on his face.
So there you go. See,
those are just like prime examples. And I know One Piece has like a couple Naruto references when it comes to the ninjas in the show, but I guess I'll wrap it up with what advice do you have for aspiring voice actors looking to kind of break into the industry?
It's tough because AI is coming, and it's coming on strong, and what they don't necessarily need actors to. You can put in AI and say translate this Japanese show into English, and then put it. You know what I mean? They can do it. I feel like that's not going to be very good. Who knows? Maybe it'll be okay, but having a real live actor behind that and give it some acting and putting that human touch on it, I think will always be preferable. But
AI doesn't have that emotional.
Pretty soon, my voice is out there enough right now that they could do Shikamaru till the end of time. There's enough voice sampling that they could get which is scary because put you out of business. You know what I mean? It's not just some guy doing an impersonation, but it's like now they can do it with a machine. Anyway, not to discourage. My advice is be an actor. The interesting thing to me is it always strikes me as funny is this be a voice actor. It's like I don't know what that is. I'm an actor who found a little bit of success in the voice realm. You know what I mean? And I think you could still, so the saying applies. Go do a play. Take an improv class. Go take a class where you're working with other students and other teachers and stuff get up on stage, learn lines, all that kind of stuff. Those experiences are great. Now, once you're doing voiceover, your number one, creating a character very fast is where I think like the improv helps, diving into a character, and you're cold reading, right? You only get the script like 2 minutes before, so being able to take a script, look at it, and get to the essence of what that line is supposed to be and how it's supposed to be delivered. That is the one skill that voice actors have amongst all others. I've met world-class actors can't do a cold read. They have to prepare. They have to read it. They have to they'll read the whole script. They have to know the context. They have to know the backstory. It's great when you can do that, but anime works so fast that you have to basically do it. And you have to dive into the deep end of the pool, and you have to swim. And that is the one skill. It's hard to teach. Reading the newspaper out loud. Newspaper. Who is this old man? Or reading the news feed on Yahoo out loud. Or reading a short story, take a book, just read it out loud. Like being able to read and speak at the same time and make it sound like a natural voice. That is what you're going for. So those are things you can do to work on it. There's a lot of great classes out there for it. Again, my first advice, be an actor. Dive into that. Whatever that means. Community theater, improv, comedy, high school play, Shakespeare, all that stuff. Take it all in. All that will help you in one way or another. And then the other thing is there's a lot of great online classes. Steve Bloom, who plays Orochimaru in Naruto, he has got a great voice network where he teaches classes and you can ask questions. And then once you're part of the community, people say like, what's a cheap mic? Like I can't afford $1,000 mic, but what's a great one for auditions? How can I build a booth that's inexpensive? Or, what are things I can do to improve my this or that? And then he'll have classes where they talk about creating a character or coming up with a voice or, how to prepare for an audition or how to make a demo tape, all that kind of stuff. And that's Blumvox Studios. And so I always recommend that. That's a great one. You can go right now. You can study from home. You don't have to be anywhere. And you can get a taste for it and a flavor for it. And there you go. So
Yeah, I'll put that in the link to the video.
But I still think the best is interacting in person. So, go out there and take an improv class, everybody.
The link for Blumvox Studios will be in the post when I post this, guys. So make sure to check that out down below.
Yep.
Tom, it's really been a pleasure having you on here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you coming by. I know, like you said, you're doing convention after convention. We mentioned it earlier, guys. You can find him at Anime Riverside on May 31st. I believe he has Cheyenne Ice and Events Center August 23rd through the 24th.
That's right. Oh, you looked it up while I was...
Yeah, I got you.
You're better than me.
So make sure you check him out there. He's at the Indiana Convention Center June...
That's right.
June 6th through the 8th?
6th? Yeah, that sounds right. Yep.
Yeah, and so make sure to check him out. One of the all-time greatest voice actors. Very noticeable.
And just give me a follow on at the Real Tom Gibis at TikTok and on Instagram.
Yeah, he's available. All his socials are at the Real Tom Gibis. That's including TikTok, Instagram. He has a cameo if you'd like to get some birthday wishes, So make sure to check him out on everything he has at the Real Tom Gibis. And we'll include a link to all his socials in this video so you guys can just check it out right below.
Fantastic.
Just wanted to tell you we appreciate you and keep doing what you're doing. We hope to see you in that Blue Vortex time jump because I know Shikamaru is a huge part. He's a huge part of that time.
I know.
And so they better animate it. We'll riot if not. So
there's some great lines in it already of Shikamaru's.
100%.
I know this isn't what Naruto would do, but I'm not him. So there's a little advance preview
that never before heard right there
of the Shikamaru. I was gonna do a little spoiler there, but of Shikamaru as in Blue Vortex. So
we'll take it. We love it. So we really appreciate him stopping by. Make sure that you guys check out their socials. Like I said, they will be posted in the video along with Blumvox voice acting classes and everything else that we've talked about here today. So guys, make sure to check that out at the end. I appreciate you guys coming by. This has been At Midnight with Ash. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode.